Tom Brady out there anymore.
We are joined by Carlos Silva, Lubbock Avalanche Journal. So much going on today. Caleb Williams, Tom Brady, among some others. And then there is this game, my God, in Lubbock, Texas. It's bringing so much animosity and anger and angst and whatever else along with it. Carlos, are you wearing camouflage today? Are you wearing gear? Are you ready to some? Well, you're okay. You're one of the friendlies. But can you try to explain where they are emotionally right now in Lubbock?
I think emotionally in Lubbock, you're looking at a fan base that is just looking to get back at a coach that they feel spurned by, that went from not only Texas Tech. I think they'd be fine if he would have gone anywhere else, but the fact that he went to an in-state rival, and not only that, but UT of all places, a place that is reviled by this fan base just because of the burnt orange and just for the holier-than-thou attitude that it has to other schools in the state. I think that really kind of hit a certain nerve for Texas Tech fans, and certainly some of the fan base also feels like he kind of did this backhanded, so to speak, with the story about the Plainview McDonald's and kind of all those things. But I think when you look at this game, and it's funny that you all kind of asked that, the fan bases are fired up, or at least the Texas Tech fan base is certainly fired up, as anyone that has logged on to social media has seen. With the bus and kind of all those things. But the two coaches are fine with each other. Mark had mentioned that he just missed talking to Chris over the weekend. So I think in terms of the business side of this, I think the coaches understand what it is. It's just, it's more for the fans at this point. And I think you all have seen just what the fans feel like. And I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere, probably one that we haven't seen since maybe Kentucky or Kansas have traveled to Lubbock in the last couple of years.
You mentioned the coaches. How are the players on Texas Tech approaching this? Because when you get this lathered up as a fan base, sometimes players can go in and kind of suffocate under the weight of those expectations. But given their style of play, I'm not sure that that's going to be an issue, Carlos.
No, and the other thing, too, as you guys kind of know, the way Chris and the way Mark operate, they got a lot of transfers. I mean, there are certain guys that return, like a Kevin McCullough, Terrence Shannon, Marcus Silva, and Clarence Nadolny, at least for Texas Tech, that did play under Chris Beard. But after that, you got a bunch of guys that are brand spanking new to this. Yes, they understand it's a big game because it's a Big 12 conference game. It's an in-state rival for Texas. But Bryson Williams, Kevin O'Banner, Adonis Arms, you ask all those guys, they're just listening to the returners and just hearing the same thing. This is just another game, fellas. It's a big game. And I think this is probably something that's also lost in this. Both of these teams are tied for third in the Big 12, so whoever wins this gets a little bit of an edge in terms of the standings, and that's certainly going to be a big thing, especially with the way the Big 12 has been playing so far.
So Texas is at number 23 in the country now, third in the Big 12, but they've won 3 straight, including that win in the SEC Challenge over Tennessee. Tech obviously has been playing pretty well. I mean, in terms of the actual matchup, not the off the court and all that, I mean, how do you see these two teams lining up, Carlos?
It's going to be a rock fight, fellas. Texas likes to play at a slow pace because it puts pressure on the opposing team's defense. But then if you really look at it, the way that the Tennessee game went, puts a lot of pressure on an offense, especially one that scored 1 point. Granted, that was the winning point in the last 5.5 minutes of that contest to beat Tennessee. You can't do those type of scoring droughts against Texas Tech because they can score points in a hurry if they are able to get deflections, get fast break dunks, fast break layups. And not only that, but when you have a charged up crowd, that's going to certainly play a part in this contest as players, especially an Adonis Arms, who's really emerged as a big time player, for Texas Tech, as Terrence Shannon's been dealing with some injuries. Kevin McCullough's been dealing with some injuries. I think it's something to be said that this home crowd could play a huge factor in this game.
Carlos Silva Jr. covers Texas Tech, and UT tonight. Chris Beard, Mark Adams, and more. You know, one of the things I mentioned, and you mentioned there's not as many players who were there that played for Beard or whatever, is sometimes a team can get so emotionally charged that they play the game before the game, and they don't have much left to take. You don't think that's any issue at all today?
I honestly think the biggest issue for Texas Tech is just the fact that the fans have been, trash talking for so long that there's a little bit of extra pressure for Texas Tech to win this game, because if they don't, there could be hysteria following this game, fellas. And I think that's really the biggest thing is, yes, Texas Tech has a good team. Texas is certainly talented. But if you look at the way things match up, if Texas Tech has been able to get 4 wins over ranked opponents so far, whereas Texas finally got its first ranked win over Tennessee over the weekend. You can look and see where the teams have at least shown their depth or just their quality in terms of what they have so far. And I think this is going to be an interesting barometer for both teams in terms of, can Texas Tech, in a raucous atmosphere, which early on it didn't show against Providence in a road game, that it could not handle that type of atmosphere. There were a couple of technicals that were called. I know Clarence Nadoli in a big game against Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum, he got a technical called on him late in the contest that did not help Texas Tech, where they were essentially battling with 7 players, but they were still in it, and that technical did not help things. And that's something Mark Adams talked about, is he has to make sure his guys are calm, level-headed, because at the end of the day, this is a big game. They need to win this because of the Big 12 standings and just what they want to accomplish later on once the NCAA tournament starts. But yeah, I mean, kind of to what you all said, I think it's one of those things where it should be, if everything goes to plan, it should be a very good game and probably a tight contest at the end of it.
In your journalistic career, Carlos, did you ever think you would be covering a Ric Flair attended basketball game?
You know, I've covered some weird things. The halftimes have been very interesting at Texas Tech, to say the least. We've had Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go with, I'm trying to remember the name of the rapper that does
Vanilla
that
Ice
right now, but there you go. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, yeah, we've had Vanilla Ice there. Ric Flair is certainly, I mean, honestly, I don't know if this was planned, but if there's a time to bring in Ric Flair, this would be the game for it, because you have a heel and you have a baby face, if you will, when you look at what Chris Beard is kind of coming back to where it all started. He had all these great things, but then all of a sudden he throws a chair to the back of someone, and then all of a sudden he leaves and kind of hightails to UT. I think it's interesting that you bring a wrestling figure that knows all about, hyping people up. And if there's a guy that can do it, it's certainly Ric Flair.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's all of it combined. Carlos, thank you. First of all, Texas Tech this is a huge game. We've all mentioned this now. If you look at the standings with what happened, Baylor survived last night. They had 2 of their starters out, and they somehow I hate to say gutted out, but I guess that's what they did. West Virginia lost Sherman late in the game, but Kansas and Iowa State, and then Texas Tech, you're talking about 3 of the top 4 teams playing tonight. The other one played last night and won. So it's just a fight and a struggle to get to the top, and ought to be one hell of a game. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it, y'all. And like I said, if you can win at home, that's going to be a big thing for the Big 12.
Beating Kansas at home, have Baylor at home later, and if they can beat Texas at home, that's and what a hell of a deal that could be, because they've already won the game in Waco. That's Carlos Silva Jr. Really have enjoyed having him on quite a bit with all the coaching changes in football, and then of course they're running basketball. Kansas 6-1, Baylor 7-2 now after their win against West Virginia, and then also at 5-3 both Texas and Texas Tech. TCU